Hey guys, this is Lindsay with Vinyl Gallery and welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial, we will be working on this very beginner friendly Milky Way style tumbler. I'll try to list everything that I use in the description box, and if you'd like to see how we finish this tumbler off, just stay tuned. So for today's tutorial, we will be starting with a tumbler that has already been prepped, sanded, spray painted, glittered, and 2 layers of epoxy have already been applied. I was watching a video on the Brittany Barnes channel, and she took tumblers that she had already been working on and she finished them up. They had just been sitting there for a while, and I think she named the tutorial "Take Your Tumblers from Trash to Treasure." So that is what we will be doing today. Now, because this tumbler had already been sitting for a pretty good while, it was a little bit more difficult to use a sanding block to sand down the rim to expose that small line of stainless steel. So I used my Dremel tool and a nail file to expose that rim. My advice would be, if you're going to use a tumbler that's been sitting for a while and already epoxied, you definitely want to make sure that you sand it down really good, just to ensure that your future layers of epoxy have something to adhere to. Once I was done with my Dremel, I did take a sanding block to this upper rim just to smooth it out just a little bit, because I did use a 60 grit nail file and it was a little bit rough. So I took a sanding block and just smoothed the edges around, and that is what we are working with so far. Then I took a 60 grit sanding block and I just literally scuffed up the entire surface of this tumbler, and I'm going to take this to the sink and give it a good wash with dish soap and water just to clean it off for the next process. Now that we have a smooth, clean tumbler, we will begin with the Milky Way process. For this process, I am mixing up about 30 milliliters of epoxy, of which 15 will go to the cup, and then I will divide out the rest of the epoxy to add my mica powders and epoxy dye. The mica powders are from 4K Glitter Co., and I will be sure to list those in the description box. They are available on the website, and you can also use a discount code for those. And I used Alumilite's epoxy dye in the colors black and white. Here I'm applying about 15 to 20 milliliters of epoxy, and I will put a layer on there just enough for my epoxy dyes and mica powders to be able to spray it. Once I get this coat on, I will hit it with my torch just a little bit to pop any bubbles that may be trapped, but not so much heat that everything starts to mix when I apply my micas and epoxy dye. The Turner system that I use is from the Bowen, and I will be sure to list that in the description box. My last couple of tumblers have come out with a wobbly fat bottom, and I couldn't figure out why, but where this arrow is pointing, there's the culprit. So you will see later on in the video where I do have a fat bottom on this tumbler, but that is kind of an easy fix. You just have to use your elbow and sand. But I did get some cardboard and epoxy stuck on the bottom of this leg on this left side, so that is causing my tumblers to be unlevel. Once this epoxy leveled out, I am going to hit it with my torch just to pop any bubbles and just warm up my epoxy just a little bit. Now y'all, you have to be very careful with this epoxy dye. A little bit goes a very, very long way. This is not the same thing as using alcohol ink and epoxy. This is very, very opaque, and a dab will do you, literally. As you can see on my glove, I did have a little mishap with my orange mica powder, trying to get that plastic lid off, but I did just put a small scoop of that into this epoxy as well and mix that in really good. It gives off a very, very pretty shimmer. I'm starting off with my darkest colors first. This is the epoxy dye, and we're just putting this in small thin strips along the tumbler as the tumbler turns. I'm going to do the exact same thing with this orange mica powder, and my goal was to leave some of this white glitter exposed, but I got a little heavy, so you can go as heavy or as minimal as you'd like for this process. For the black micas, I just went right beside or right on top of the epoxy dye, and this black mica also gives off a very pretty sheen or shimmer. I was hoping the white was going to kind of be like a barrier in between the colors, because I did not want them to run together so much to where the design looked muddy. Now this heat gun is probably one of my favorite tools in my shop. Right now I have it on no heat, so it is literally just blowing air. Now you don't want to cool your epoxy down, but I did not want to melt or heat up my epoxy so much that the color started running together. I was trying to thin them out at this stage with no heat. I am using my concentrated nozzle, and here's where I turn the heat up just a little bit. I think I put it on a number 6, which is not nearly as high as this heat gun can go, but I just wanted the epoxy to start to swirl and mix a little bit more. After I changed the direction of my tumbler, I went in and just sprinkled some glitter in the sections that correlated with each color. This orange is from the glitter guy, and I will list that in the description box as well, but I did this with each color. Now this is the point where I just had to stop because I was getting a little bit too carried away, but this is about after 4 or 5 minutes of turning. I will change the direction of the tumbler several times, but I will not add any more heat, and I'll just let the tumbler do its thing. Once my tumbler had been curing for about 8 hours, I did take it off the turner and I sanded down this wobbly fat bottom, and we are moving to the decal portion. I got this SVG from Etsy, Bear Trends Designs. I will list that in the description box as well. But this design already came with an offset, which is a bonus, and several of her designs do, so be sure to check her out. And this is where I am attempting to line up this decal, and I decided, well, let's just go diagonal instead of straight up and down, so that is what we decided to do. I used the hinge method, or what I was trying to use was the hinge method to apply this decal, but I did end up having to reposition some of the letters because in my haste, I wasn't paying attention, but we were able to get it all worked out. I found these cute little bats on Creative Fabrica, and if you are not subscribed to Creative Fabrica, you are definitely missing out on a treat. For a low monthly fee, you get access to hundreds of thousands of fonts and designs. And so I got these bats from there, and I used the same black Teckwrap craft vinyl, and I'm just applying these bats all around the tumbler. Now I was trying to only put the bats where the orange mica powder was placed on the cup, and I think I did that, but I can get carried away with decals, so I was trying to keep it minimal. But as you can see, we have bats all over this tumbler. After we were done with all of our vinyl work, I did use CCDIY's quick coat to seal in all of this vinyl so that it doesn't lift once we apply our final layers of epoxy. After applying my quick coat, that took about 30 minutes or so for that to dry, and I did end up using 2 final layers of epoxy, and here is the finished product. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's video. If you like what you saw, be sure to give us a huge thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out any links or discount codes listed in the description box. I do my very best to respond to every question and comment. Until next time, bye!